Hello everyone, welcome. My name is P3D. Welcome to another P3D video. Today it's gonna be a settings video. I thought I'd quickly go through my settings for P3D and my GPU. This is a video that's been requested for a while. The last one I did was like 18 months ago, I think. So things have changed the way I use my sim now. So I thought I'd go through the settings, but I combine it with a short flight, so you understand how, why I've got my sliders set the way I have, and also you can visually see the impact. So in the top left corner I have my frame rate and my VRAM. So right now we are sat in Memphis, Tennessee, in the FedEx cargo ramp area. We're just loading up a cargo flight, and like the AI traffic that you see here, if I spin the camera around, is, well, there's not that many, I'd say. There's a few off I can see down there. There's a few UPS ones. There's a lot of FedEx because we're in the FedEx terminal. But if we look at how many air traffic is in the local area, you can see the list goes on quite a lot. I have my sliders for traffic set to 100, so that's like how much we get. And my frames are 30, basically 30 to 35 at the moment. This is the FS Dream Team Memphis, which is pretty decent. It is surrounded by Orbex land class, because we're in Tennessee. I don't have any photoreal for Tennessee, but I do have photoreal. If we look off to the horizon here, I think this is a state where I do have photoreal. And so this area I've got photoreal. There's the airport, the other airport there. And this is all Orbex Global. So we're surrounded by quite a lot, to be fair, because, look at those. I'm using active sky weather. So, but anyway, I thought we would do a quick flight. Once they load up the plane here, we'll get our engines revving. Like I said, I'm doing a short flight so you see everything in action. And then you can understand why I've set the settings the way I have. Now, if you just want to know the settings and you're like, dude, stop waffling, just get on with it, I haven't got patience for this bullshit, give me your settings, then I'll leave a timestamp where it's literally P3D settings, GPU settings, and you can skip all this if you don't feel it's relevant. But the reason that like I said, I'd like to do this is so you have a full understanding, because I will explain all the settings as well, and benefits of having them set either higher, lower, or whatever. The most important thing I would say for your GPU in P3D is set it according to your GPU. Unless you're using those legacy clouds, then you need to set it according to your CPU. If you're using volumetric clouds, then you need to set it for your GPU, like I do. And you literally can get any frame rate you want. Also, here's a little tip. We go into spot mode, right, where we can circle around the plane and we can zoom in and out. So if I zoom out extremely, I've got like 25 to 27 frames on average as I spin the camera around. But if I zoom in like a couple of notches, the frame rate increases. So the more you zoom in, the more of an increase you get of frame rate. So now I'm up to 35. So don't have it all the way zoomed out, just zoom in a little bit and your frame rate will increase. Just a little tip there. So it's things like that that I will, tips like that I will showcase
baggage handling is complete
throughout,
and the aircraft is clear.
but until we get to the settings. So I do hope you watch it all. Anyway, let's get in. Let's get this beast in the air. ATR I fly quite frequently, so I'm quite versed in this. We want external power sets. We want logo nav, like quick and dirty. Let's get these puppies going. Fuel pumps need to be running. Engine start. Introduce the fuel. Add the speed. TCAS mode. Activate. Oh, engine. Oh dear. Need to set the engine power rating. Let the engines settle for a sec. We didn't actually flick on the logo. No, the beacon or the wing. Right. Recirculatings, packs, bleeds, air bleed, horns, and auto anti-ice. I think that needs to be on the mains. We are good to go up here. Let's actually light on. Right, let's get out of here. So like I said, the add-ons that I use, I have Orbex Global Base, North American Land Class, and a lot of photoreal as well. I also have my terrain pack, you know, put in my ocean pack, my sky pack and all that, altered shaders and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I'm running on the landscape sense. An active sky for the clouds, with a tweaked volumetric cloud file, low flaps, trim, a bit fast here. So that's what I'm running. Like, obviously, you know, performance in the sim will really kind of also depend on what you're flying and where you're flying, what you're running in the sim, default or add-ons. You know, it doesn't matter what hardware you run. The more add-ons you place in, the more data within those add-ons, the more hit on the hardware, and the more hardware you need to get like a decent, smooth experience, I guess, without having run down settings. So just something to know, yeah. Okay, so we're literally just going to take this to the air. Take off, inhibit off. Position levers. So, landing lights on. Strobe on. Taxi light off. Gust lock off. Let's rock and roll this bitch. Gear up. Flaps up. Climb mode established. Autopilot can go on. So yeah, this is Tennessee that you're looking at here. We need to do a 360 turn, so 098 I think it is. 088. 0. Pitch our nose back up again as we turn. Speed's doing good. Increase that to 1 line. It's like is that Tennessee City there, I guess. Obviously this isn't the correct procedure for departing out of Memphis, Tennessee. Like it's a bit rock and rolly. Oh, I haven't set the how high we're going. Whoops-a-daisy. Yeah, let's go up to 16,000 feet there. Vertical speed. Just drop it. Yeah, it's a good thing that we're cargo all here. Engine's doing fine. Speed's fine. Keep climbing fine. Like the moisture on these wings here. 16 degrees. I'm going to turn the probes on. So yeah, I just like I said, do this quick flight. Gives you a sense of, you know, what performance I get with the hardware I have from the settings I use. That way you can visually see, you know, what I'm talking about, rather than just show you my settings. You know, if we combine it with a short flight, then you get to see it in action. So still between 30 and 35 frames. That's not changed since we left the ground. I'm happy with that. Memphis, beautiful. See you later. Basically. Right, so get above these clouds. Okay, so while we're in the climb, I'll go through my GPU settings. Just quickly turn those alarm lights off. Right, so now I use an NVIDIA card. I never used AMD. I don't think I ever would. So if you're running an AMD, you need to translate what I'm saying to apply it to your card, and some features might not be available. The only reason I prefer an NVIDIA card with P3D is because P3D, obviously the core of it has come from FSX, and that was built around an NVIDIA architecture. So it's inherently works best with NVIDIA. Although AMD have made some really great, you know, strives and increases, you know, to make P3D like be more compatible with P3D, I still feel NVIDIA is better, and that's the only reason I use it. So first thing I'd say to do when you're setting up your GPU is tick this box and slide this to performance. Okay, that basically takes your card and tunes it for performance, which removes quite a lot of things that will actually hamper performance. Okay, once you've done that, then tick this and you'll notice that this changed. It was a lot more smoother when, you know, before I tick this. So I cancel. This box here is a lot more like smoother, but as soon as I tick this, it went a bit jaggier. Basically, it's removing all the enhancements that the card could be doing for textures in the sim, or for, you know, use on your GPU. So I'll just put that back, cancel that. Now once you've done that, go into manage 3D settings. So there's global settings, there's program settings that are specific to P3D. But talking just about the global settings, because this will apply to your desktop and any other programs in general. So I do have image scaling turned on. This basically sharpens all the textures. I have gamma correction turned on for anti-aliasing. The anti-aliasing mode though is turned off. I have dynamic scaling resolution, or dynamic super resolution, you know, scaled up 1.78. So if you click on it, you can see it scales it up to a 5K image, and then the smoothness is 33%. Now this will come back down in my change resolution setting, so you'll see what I mean when we go there. I do enable G-Sync compatible, because my monitor is a G-Sync, but I don't actually use it as G-Sync. So I just let this GPU know that yes, I am using a G-Sync monitor. I force it to render on the GPU, not auto selects, which sometimes that can change to your CPU, just like the physics option here. I ask it to do the highest available refresh rate, and I give it an unlimited cache size. Now this cache size, if I bring up my desktop DirectX cache here, so under App Data Local NVIDIA, these are all the DirectX cache files that generate as you're using your PC. Doesn't matter if you're in the sim, watching a video, watching YouTube, Twitch, whatever. We are at cruise. So let's draw back the power. Pumps off. And we can increase our speed. -3, so the de-icing is all on. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Right, so the DX cache will generate files as you use your PC. Now I've set it to unlimited, so this will just fill this folder as far as it will want to go. But they don't clear themselves. Like I think when you restart your PC, it doesn't even clear them then. Now these bin files can easily get corrupted, and what I tend to do, and never do this while you're in your sim, but highlight them all and delete them. It won't allow you to delete everything because you're still using your GPU, but you can get rid of old ones, you know. Cache files are meant to be temporary and meant to be deleted, but for some reason these don't. So I delete it off my system, and therefore it doesn't have corruption or crashes because of because of cache of your DirectX. I allow for negative LOD, so basically this gives you a higher performance. Again, these are global settings. We're not in P3D settings yet. These are just settings to apply on a global scale. Texture filtering to quality. If you set it to high quality, it will turn off all optimizations, and your card kind of almost goes into sleeper mode. I used to think that it would actually give me more performance by having all these optimizations turned off, but actually you're not using your GPU then, so burn. I also turn off vertical sync in the global settings. So now going to P3D and setting up, of course, image scaling is turned on again, and I just use the default here way of doing it, and this sharpens your textures down below. Doesn't take that much performance away from your card either. I don't have any anti-aliasing switched on in my GPU. Gamma correction is on. The ultra latency mode for queuing frames, the low latency mode, sorry, for queuing frames is set to ultra. And I have my max frame rate the double of what my actual monitor is, which is 60 Hertz. So I've set this to 120 because I find that if let's say if you load in at Heathrow, it tries to gain 60, but all the add-ons there could hamper that frame rate down to like 20 or 15 or 10. But if you extend that ceiling just a little bit, then so does when you load into, say, Heathrow, you get a little bit more frames because it tries to go higher, but the add-ons are still bringing it down a bit. So I just basically set to double my monitor in the max frame rate. I do say that it is G-Sync compatible, but I don't switch this thing on. I force it again to render on the GPU and maximum performance on the card, and I say highest available refresh rate, which is only ever going to be 60, by the way. Like, this will never try and get above 60. So again, quality on the texture filtering and allow on the negative LOD bias. If you set to clamp, your textures probably would look better, but you'd take a massive performance hit. And in all honesty, I've got no complaints from my textures because I upscale to 5K and then reduce it down to 2K, and therefore I don't need to run anti-aliasing. I'll also vertical sync. Don't ever use triple buffering. It's like rendering the sim 3 times. Absolute waste of time. Vertical sync I set to fast. This is basically like having no vertical sync and just like letting your GPU run unconstrained to achieve the maximum frame rate only. Okay, I'm going to click apply on that because I have actually changed a couple of things. In the next menu down, physics, make sure you select your GPU, unless your CPU is way better than your GPU. If you select auto select, it can flick between the two, and you could find that, you know, like either stutters or crashes or just not good performance. So the way I set my resolution up here, I have two 4K monitors. They both run at 60 hertz, but one scales normally to 2K. The other one is overscaling, you know, to 5K and then coming back down by 67% to 2K. I use the NVIDIA color settings here, and my output dynamic range is on full, and I mirror that on the other one. So basically I'm running my monitor at 2K. Okay. Anything else, to be honest, is irrelevant. I can't think of anything else here that would help you, unless make sure you turn off the audio for any HDMIs, and that will just cut the sound going. If I have my headphones directly plugged up to my PC, so I don't need sound running through speakers. Okay, so I think we're still flying over Tennessee. I think we also might need to climb because things might get a little bit cloudy in a second here. Okay, so in terms of P3D now, the scenery library is very important. I'm going to start here for the scenery library. I would highly recommend you organizing your scenery library, but do not use more than one manager in order to do it. Orbex has a scenery library manager included. When you go into the options, there is an insertion point you need to select, and when you select it, where's mine? My insertion point is Port Vila. So this is the final add-on layer in my library for third party that is non-Orbex. So Orbex knows now, whack your libraries beneath this and put all of your stuff beneath it, and then the third party stuff after that goes down there. So, and then everything gets organized. So, but I have add-on XMLs, as you can see, quite a few. And I have, if we scroll down, I have regular scenery library items. Add-on XMLs are not a part of your scenery library. They could even be located on another drive, but they do not they're not included in the file for your scenery library. They're not in your scenery CFG file. Okay, they're separate from your scenery library. They're placed on top. So when your sim is getting indexed for all the sim object placements, all the data from these files here will go on top, and then down below all this stuff. Okay, priority, making a priority layer. If we go down here, you'll see that some people have added a priority layer for the add-on XMLs. Makes no difference. It will automatically sit on top of your scenery library anyway. So all these shoving them down here doesn't make any sense for the way P3D will read it. The reason, I mean, I won't get into it, but basically what you want to do is you want to organize your scenery library. The way I do it is I have things on top that need to be on top, like my time zone fixer, lights, any priority things, you know, night lighting, you know, will sit as priority. Then we get into the scenery items. Now, I organize it in geographic terms. We start at the Solomon Islands, just past New Zealand, and we go east around the world. So we hit all the French Polynesia stuff, the Cook Islands, Hawaii, then we get to Canada, then we get to America. We're moving east along, both, you know, top, lateral, and bottom as well. So we hit places like Florida, then we get into Mexico, South America, Bahamas, moving over to Greenland, England, France, Spain, Africa, and then we hit stuff like Italy. So it's all organized, yeah. We've got the Greek islands. Then we move over to like Russia, which is in Asia. So we also have Dubai and things like that. Okay, so it's all organized, and we finally end up, once we pass Australia, we end up at the New Caledonian Port Vila Islands, which are literally just past the Solomon Islands. So we do a full, you know, 360 around the world. And now this is organized for me. If anything is to be inserted, if anything was like an add-on XML suddenly shoved in here, I'd instantly know about it and could fix it. I don't want anything slipping in. And as you can see, I don't tick everything at once. I only load what I'm going to fly. It's very important your scenery library is managed, okay? Anyway, let's get to the settings page. Okay, so starting at the top, application, these are all completely your choice. There is no benefit for performance here. Here I turn off all the vehicle labels. I do believe that there is a slight performance impact for having all these labels turned on. I only want minimal text in my sim, so I have this text size small. I don't have user tips or scenario captions, but I do have cockpit tooltips. So when I hover on something, I still get, where is it, a little pop-up to tell me what it is, but I don't have loads of messages within the flight deck or on the screen annoying me. And I turn off ATC, obviously, because I use FLIGHTSIM. It's very important under your Windows sound devices that you actually select what you're using. If you leave it on default, you will get sound issues. It's very important. I turn off voice because I don't want ATC, and these are personal preference again. And if you turn mute on lost focus, when you click off your screen, you won't lose your sound. These are my traffic settings according to the add-ons I have. I turn off the airport vehicles though because I use GSX. I don't really care about leisure boats because I use an add-on called AI Ships Global, and that requires a 6% traffic slider, I think, setting, and then it puts in everything, including leisure boats. So I just set it to 11 and that's it. My road vehicles, I kind of slide up and down depending where I'm flying in the world. So we're flying in a very heavy city, we put it down to 18, and I full traffic when I'm not on FLIGHTSIM. These again, these are kind of user specific. I like do what you want, but I would recommend make sure that you untick the ignore attached weights. You do not want the sim to ignore, you know, any weights that, you know, could be applied to your aircraft. That's the add-ons, don't really bother with that. So my display settings, whatever your monitor is set to in Windows, you need to mirror in your resolution. And then because I upscale and downscale, I turn off texture filtering, FXAA, and I have to set some like kind of anisotropic filtering or here, basically because if I select none, some add-ons misbehave, some textures don't show properly. I guess the way that they were made, I don't know. So I have the lowest anti-aliasing setting, and that's because I upscale to 5K and then downscale back down to 2K, which is why I select the high texture resolution of 2K. There's no point in me setting 4K. Even though I've got a 4K monitor, it's set to 2K mode. I would not see any benefit, and I just increase my VRAM unnecessarily. Untick dynamic texture streaming if you've got a 1080 Ti or better card. If you've got like an under 1080 Ti, then you want to tick this because your VRAM will spike, and then it will limit and blur or use lower quality textures rather, to make sure your VRAM doesn't spike. My world settings, I would probably say you have to set this up for your GPU. So tessellation factor, the only reason I have that set down low is because this adds more data points into the mesh, which already has data points. So effectively I could just set it down to low if I wanted to. But the higher this is, the more CPU is needed to calculate those data points within your mesh. So if you have it set to ultra, your CPU is going to be working a lot harder than it actually needs to. And the hotter your CPU works, the hotter it gets. So, and it doesn't matter how much cooling you've got. You could have the best cooling in the world. The more you sweat your CPU, the hotter it gets, making the inside of your cabinet for your PC hotter. So putting this down to medium, you will not see a single visual difference, but your CPU won't cook as much. Mesh resolution 1 meter. I know some people have some problems with airports. If it's set to 1, Orbex recommend 10. All of their products are set to 10 meters. So if you only use Orbex, you might as well run this down to 10 to save yourself a little bit of performance. But I set it to 1, and if I come across an issue in an airport, I fix it within the airport itself. This is obviously a global setting, not an airport setting. Unlike the texture resolution, this is an airport setting, so this doesn't apply to the exterior world. This applies to your airports, which can hold a lot more detail within the perimeter of the airport than your global landscape, which is anything outside of a perimeter of an airport. I think you'll find that the texture resolution outside probably at its highest is 30 centimeters. So some people will go, yeah, let's put this on 30 centimeters, but you're actually leaving a lot of quality on the table there, because a lot of developers have made their textures go down to 7 centimeters within the airport confines. So this really does need to be on the highest setting to see the best textures. And obviously you always want to use high resolution terrain textures, which is kind of what this slider does. This activates the highest ones, like when you're flying over terrain. So all these textures down below, outside of the airport perimeter, are most likely like 30 centimeters, 60 centimeters in quality. You know, they don't generally get better than that, because obviously there are so many, and loading in like 7 centimeter per pixel textures will just completely nuke the VRAM unnecessarily. So, but there's two types of files that load in here. There are high resolution and low resolution. The low resolution ones tend to load out to the horizon, which means they're a little bit blurry. And then the high resolution ones around your plane as you're flying, and you'll literally see the loading point, which for me is about here. And I have my LOD radius set to high. So if I set that down to low, the loading point would probably be around here, and I'd see blurries a lot more. I set it to high, and it looks like it's about here that it gets a bit blurry. which is fine because you're in your flight deck. You don't really need to see sharp textures off to the horizon. That wouldn't look realistic anyway, so they start to go blurry about here. So this is where all the low resolution textures are, and then the higher resolution ones are right outside my window, and then they load in as you fly. So definitely want to make sure you're using high resolution terrain textures, otherwise you're going to get blurry textures around your aircraft. So the scenery objects now, this scenery complexity should always, no matter what GPU you're setting, be set to extremely dense. This then tells P3D, put in everything, don't exclude certain things. The lower this goes, you're now excluding scenery items. So it could be towers, communication towers. It could be, I honestly can't think now, but it could be certain types of buildings. It could be certain types of monuments. It could be certain types of trees. You know, the lower you go, the less scenery you're putting in your sim. But so to see everything, set it to extremely dense. Now this really wouldn't, you know, hamper your performance until you're setting your sliders down here, because this is just telling P3D, don't exclude any of the visuals, you know. This one is going to really impact performance, because obviously how much autogen for trees and buildings are going to draw out to the distance. Now I've got mine set to high, which means they kind of draw out to about here. Now, you know, the higher you go, the further away from your aircraft you want these scenery items drawing out. So because I fly around 15 to 20,000 feet, high is absolutely good enough. I wouldn't see a tree off to this end here. So I can see all the scenery loading here, but I can't see it loading like over here, because I probably wouldn't in real life. It's that far away. So this helps kind of like maintain a realistic visual. High, when you're on the ground, goes off to the horizon. So you'd never need to go above high effectively, unless you're going at 40,000+ feet, in which case, yes, you want to set a higher draw distance. If you set it out, though, obviously you're bringing in more objects, which means more calculations for your CPU, more renders for your GPU, less frames, because both your CPU and GPU are working to introduce more data into the sim, and so that frame rate is kind of secondary, and it will come down. So to be honest, if you're flying commercial flights very high, above 40,000. If you're flying between 15 to 20,000, high. And if you're flying low to the ground, you want to set it to medium. And if you're in a very populated area, a dense city like Heathrow, maybe even have it on low. And it will still give you acceptable results, because low still actually goes out to, I think, like if you're on the ground, it's about a quarter of the horizon line. So it's actually still pretty decent. Now these densities should actually say variety. So, there's numerous amounts of trees types and building types in your sim. The lower that these sliders go is bringing the variation down. So let's just say there's 20 building types in the sim. There's much more, but let's just say there are 20. If I had it here, you'd probably see about 10 different types of buildings only. And if I put it down here, you won't see any buildings, but maybe you'd only see 5 different types of buildings here. By having them set to extremely dense, you're just telling the sim, give me everything. This one is really going to then dictate your performance. Now, obviously, I find the more you tell the sim to eliminate things and remove things, the harder your CPU has to work to exclude these things. It doesn't actually, I find, benefit performance to run things down, because now your CPU's got to go, right, don't put that in, don't put that in, don't put that in. And that takes more effort than just go throw everything in. So I find that these 3 sliders you can have set to extremely dense no matter what GPU you're running, but then set this according to what kind of card you have and what kind of area you fly. So obviously extremely high can be seen as an ultra setting maybe, or a super ultra setting if you've got a 40 series card. If you've got, like my card, a 3090, this would be the ultra then, very high. This would be just what it says, high, if you're running maybe like a 1080 Ti or a 20 series card, sorry. If you're running a 1080 Ti, then you're on the medium settings, and if you're running anything lower than a 1080 Ti, you're on the low, and that's what your GPU can handle. So my GPU could actually handle this very high setting, you know, but my frame rate may take a slight hit, although it probably wouldn't. So let's have a look, shall we? So right now I'm getting 45 frames on average. 45 to 50. So if we go back up now and we set that to very high and let it now recalculate all the scenery objects as they're placed out to the horizon line, and everything now is loaded in further out, you see that my frames haven't actually moved. They're still 50, you know. And in all honesty, and I can now see buildings just out to about here, which doesn't really make much of a difference when you're up high, but then as you start to get down low, you know, to a city or to an airport, it's then drawing stuff out even further to the horizon, which you probably wouldn't even see at certain, like when you're at the airport, you're not going to see things like out here if you're here, so there's no point in rendering it. You know, it's just going to unnecessarily bring down your sim. I will leave this option on now, but I just wanted to illustrate, you know, the difference between having it set to, like, what this setting could mean. You know, set this according to your GPU, you know. I turn off this dynamic 3D auto gen vegetation. They look wank. It takes your normal trees, which we see down here, and it changes them with the dynamically made trees by Lockheed Martin, which sway in the wind, you know, have their leaves rendered a little bit differently from these crisscross versions. And in all honesty, the models look okay. It's just the color of the leaves look too bright and luminous green, and they actually take more performance away from your sim. I'm happy with the crisscross trees. In all honesty, I don't need luminous green trees which look awful when you compare it to setting up your trees in the CFG file with settings to really enhance it, which I'll explain in a bit. Enhanced atmospherics, I tick it on because volumetric clouds look nicer than the legacy clouds. God rays, all this turn on, but don't turn on motorized clouds. It's still an experimental. It was never resolved. It probably never will be. Don't use it. Untick enable bathymetry. You're going to be using, if you tick this box and you tick it in your scenery library, your CPU is going to be calculating a lot more stuff because it's calculating underwater elevations. I'm not in a submarine, so I don't care about mountains under the sea. If you're doing submarine simulation, which you can in P3D, by the way, you can do underwater simulation, then tick this. You will need it. Water detail, special effects details, put these on ultra. No matter what card you have, they do not hamper your performance one bit. Reflections, these really only refer to the legacy reflections. These aren't pertaining to the dynamic reflections that are given to you for free by your GPU. I tick all these because some legacy add-ons still use the reflections done by a texture, which is an old way of making reflections. In fact, this plane is, does that as well. This plane has reflections, or some of its reflections, done by a texture. Now, I've re-PBR'd this plane and given it to where the reflections are done dynamically. So, I mean, you can't really see it here up high, but the ground is shown down below. But you can't really say we're up a bit higher. If you were on the ground, you would see the ground reflecting in this dynamically. But this menu here isn't actually for the dynamic reflection. So you can actually tick all this stuff on. If you're using your GPU for reflections, tick it all on. Now the way you'll know if you're using your GPU for reflections is if you have the enhanced atmospherics ticked. This changes the way reflections, shadows and light are done in the sim. To use dynamic reflections, it's this menu here. But EA, right, if you activate it, it gives a live dynamic shadow and light and reflections option available to you. So if you untick this, the sim defaults for dynamic reflections to whatever setting is this. Okay? If you tick enhanced atmospherics, your dynamic reflections are done based on this, plus other stuff as well. I recommend enhanced atmospherics because you get, basically, it switches how the lights, the shadows, and the reflections are calculated. Instead of being done by the CPU, they're done by your GPU. So you get actual free reflections now because everything's reflected off PBR materials naturally, and it no longer uses this system here for textures. You know, if they haven't PBR'd the plane properly, then and they've used texture reflections, it then goes to this. So what I'm trying to say is you might as well tick all this because the legacy reflection way is an old way. Okay, enhanced atmospherics ticked, this set to ultra and dynamic lighting, and your sim will operate the way it wants to in terms of dynamically live reflections, dynamically live shadows according to the position of the sun from your plane, and the way that that light is cast to the horizon and everything it bounces off. Okay, don't matter what kind of card you run, just set it to ultra dynamic EA and tick all this. You will find that the world looks 100% better. If you basically untick on enhanced atmospherics, remove your dynamic lighting, you're using FSX effectively because it's only based now on these here and nothing live, and you're in FSX. So if you want to see the best of V5 is what I'm trying to say, use dynamic reflections. If you feel that you need to set it to medium, do it, but seriously, there ain't much difference. Tick your dynamic lighting and make sure your enhanced atmospherics is live, and then you will get a different sky with a different sun and a different moon and a different atmosphere, and it'll look a whole lot better than unticking this, because effectively this is the V4 button. This turns your sim into V4, and then turning this off turns it into FSX. Shadows, again, I'd set this according to your type of card. So I have an ultra card, I set it to ultra. If you have a high-end card like a 1080 Ti, set it to high. If you have a lower or medium-end card like maybe a 700 or an 800 series, set it to medium. And then if you're running a potato, either turn it off or set to low. But this is really pertaining to what kind of card you're using. That's why they say low, medium, high, ultra. Distance, what can your card handle? Again, set this to what your card is. Do you have a high-end card, an ultra-end card, or a medium-end card? I tick everything except for particles and this, and that's what we get when we do, apart from the plane pitching up every time I leave that menu. This is what happens when those settings are applied. So that is basically the way I set up my P3D in my GPU and in the menu. I'm still up to 40 to 50 frames, lowest 30, which is absolutely enough for smooth sailing or smooth flying in this case. Textures down below are sharp. they look pretty decent. If I can go to a different camera angle, like, everything looks sweet. If you get my pack, then you will have a completely different version of 5.4 installed. It will look a lot better. Reflections are enhanced. You get texture replacement all over the place, a different atmosphere. It's a complete 5.4 revamp. It's like 5.4 remastered. That's in my Discord. But yeah, I hope this video has been helpful to you. I hope that you've got what you needed. I'm going to activate the clouds again. I'm sorry if it's gone on for a bit long, but at the end of the day, I wanted to explain why I have these settings and what they are used for, so you can understand what you need to set with your PC, because you're not running my PC. Even if you've got the same hardware, you haven't got the same software. So you do need to set up P3D according to what your system can handle at the end of the day. So where's the sun? There it is, beautiful. Oh, one thing I will say as well, that's very important, by the way, I haven't mentioned this yet. Live graphics, bloom, right? You can see I'm rocking a high bloom setting. If I was to turn this off, you'd probably see a noticeable difference, especially with the sun. Where is it gone? Basically, bloom isn't what you think it is, okay? Bloom is introducing an atmosphere, okay? That's what it's doing. It's introducing an atmosphere. The higher you have this set, okay, the more of an atmosphere you're going to see. I have this set to 280. Now, if you're using chase plane, it doesn't make a difference what you set these three at. You have to set it within chase plane. Okay, so as you can see, I was moving that around, nothing was changing. We bring up chase plane with those three same settings, okay, and then change it. You can see what it does. Okay, so this is basically the bloom, which only affects inside the flight deck, by the way. Okay, is basically I would say an atmosphere enhancer. You can probably see a lot more of a visible difference from having it turned off to increasing it. It literally adds atmosphere. I mean, you go up to a certain point and it's just overkill. So for me, 3.0 is that sweet spot. Okay, but you'll notice that it's like way too bright here, even with auto exposure on, which only works to 3 to 4 for some reason. I don't know why. It's just way too much, so I knock it down to 2.8. There we go, and that for me is the perfect setting. But it adds this atmosphere, yeah, and softens off this horizon, makes the clouds look fluffier. If I was to turn it off, notice what the clouds look like. They kind of lose that softness look, I feel. You get kind of a little bit of a waffle removal as well when you tweak the bloom to a certain level. You've got to really tweak it though, because if you add too much, you're now adding bloom to your displays here, and that is too much. So if we can shrink it down to where there's no bloom on the displays, that is the sweet spot. So it's actually 2.9, not 2.8. I always set it in this menu as well though, just to give me a remembrance of the settings. So 2.9 seems to be that sweet spot for me. Way darker if I don't have that set. But anyway, the bloom is basically adding an atmosphere, I feel, and it basically removes a little bit of that waffle from the clouds, giving it a much more natural look. But you can play with that. That's, again, I would say personal preference. Like, you would get glare, by the way. This is called a glare shield. You would get glare coming off here. Like this, I would say is natural to what a pilot would see. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it of use. Leave down in the comments below. Don't forget, I give away 50 euros of sim market vouchers every single month. If you want to be in with a chance to win, all you have to do is leave a comment down below in any one of my P3D videos, and watch my vlog at the end of the month, because I announced the winner there. Contact me in the about section, and you can claim your 50 euros of sim market vouchers to spend on FLIGHTSIM add-ons. This guide is probably good up until 2025, by the way. These are the settings I'll be using for the foreseeable future, as 5.4 hasn't really changed, so there's no need for me to change the way I use it. So this is probably good for the next 2 years, this guide. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.